Kulen Black Gemara. We are up to the Samach Zayin and all of the Gemara. Basically, we learned the Mishnah yesterday where we talked about how we escorted the person known as the Iti, the person who was going to lead that goat that's going to be thrown off the cliff. And we said, according to our Mishnah at least, we said there were 10 tents that they built along the way, 10 sukkahs, temporary dwellings, and that there was the distance of 1 meal between each between the shalayim and the first sukkah, and then there were 9 divisions, the 9 separations between the sukkahs. That makes it 10 mil, and then between the last sukkah and the cliff itself was another 2 mil. And then they would have food. They would have food supplies in every single tent in case the person is very weary. It's an argument where the person has to be mamash dying before they give him the food, or whether the person, even if he's just very tired, that's enough to allow him on Yom Kippur to eat the food. And the argument is Nachrenim, not tomorrow, I think. And then they eat the food. Sorry, but we'll see in the Gemara. It never happened that they needed it; just the fact that it was there. And then they would be escorted all the way until the very end, the last kilometer or the last meal. He wasn't escorted. Somebody would stand from a distance. They walked a meal from the sukkah, 1 meal, and then the last meal he walked on his own. Then we talked about a rope that's being tied around the horns, between the horns of the animal and the other part of the rope that was tied around the rock. It depends if it became crimson or white. It was a sign of whether the Avedas were all forgiven or not. The animal had to be tossed off the cliff, and basically it hits the cliff all the time, and it breaks up into a number of parts. And then the last thing we learned in the mission was that the kohen or the person Ishit you did it is actually became tamei. We just had an argument as to what point does it become tamei, as soon as he's in Yerushalayim or when he throws it off the cliff. Says the Gemara. Talking about we learned, and now in the book, but I said there's one opinion. Eser sukkahs, there were a total of 10 sukkahs. Vishneim Osam Milan Hoyu, the distance from the end of Yerushalayim, edge of Yerushalayim, until the cliff was a total of 12 mil. And that works, I told you, because from Yerushalayim to the first sukkah is 1 mil. Between each sukkah is another mil. That's 10 mil, and then the last sukkah and the cliff with 2 mil. That's the opinion of Meir, which in other words our Mishnah follows our Meir. This says Teisha sukkahs. There were 9 sukkahs, Vasara Milin. And the total was, they were not 10 with 9, so there's 8 mil between the sukkahs, 1 mil between the shalayim and the first sukkah, and 1 mil between the last sukkah and the cliff. Rabbi says, Chamesh sukkahs, there were a total of 5 sukkahs, but there were 10 mil. So there were 2 mil between each sukkah. So there's 1 mil between the shalayim and the first sukkah. There were 5 sukkahs, so there's 4 sukkahs of 2. That's 8. There was 8 mil there, so 8 plus 1 is 9, and then 1 mil from the last sukkah to the cliff. And the idea of 2 mil was, it says the first sukkah walked 1 mil to greet and then the other sukkah walked. So they escorted him all the time. He was always escorted. The maximum you allowed to walk on Shabbos and Yom Kippur is 2 mil before the Pramot Chul Shabbos. Says the Gemara, what do you call it? Sorry?
He's the one who's actually walking the distance to 12 mil or 10 mil from distance. So he doesn't have to leave any food.
He leaves food.
No, he's the one who's walking.
Yeah, but he has hosts in every single tent.
So that's kind of that extends Yerushalayim for him because of all these things in between.
He has no problem. If the Torah allowed him to carry the sheep, he had to carry the sheep and anything else for his thing. That's right. Each person was limited to their chub. That's right. Exactly.
So by him, the whole unit of chum is mitchel.
Of course, if he's allowed to carry, of course, there's no problem with him. Yeah. And they say even according to Rabbi Kiva, normally whole chum Shabbos is Ma'atayda, base meal is Ma'atayda, which is exactly what he's walking. Because over here, he walked your base mill, which is not a problem, right? So he only walks your base mill, no more than that. But then when he goes back, it's not considered like he's walking more than your base mill, because if you're going back to your original place, even if a cable will be made, it's not matter. So it's only if you're going one direction. Thinking about further, he said, my son Eliezer said to me, and Rashi says, he mocked me. And he said, interesting how Rabbi Yossi wasn't embarrassed and said, my son mocked my opinion. He said to me, following your logic, you're trying to cut down the number of sukkahs. And you tell me that there was an Eid B'Tchumen, then you only last after the sukkahs. The whole thing only needs 2 sukkahs. How's that work? That's not a million. You can only have 2 sukkahs and 4 million. Why? The people of Shalayim will walk 2 million, and the people of the first sukkah are going to walk 2 million towards them. There's some people of the sukkah will walk 2 million this way, so now you have a total of 4 million, just one sukkah. And then between the first sukkah and the second sukkah, another 4 million. The people in the first sukkah, some of them, those within, will walk 2 million that way. They'll make a chum so they can allow to walk another meal. And then the person from that, from the, what do you call it? From the next thing will walk 2 because they'll make it from the chum, so they'll walk an extra thing. And then the last sukkah, some people didn't walk this way, will walk the other way. So he mocked my opinion. If you're going to try to reduce, I can reduce even further than you. So who does it follow? Which opinion?
It's really having nachas from the kids.
Exactly. They smart. That's right. But we learned except the last one. It says in our mission, the last one couldn't walk any further. He could only walk one part of the way, and he was standing there and watched him, observed him, go and go to the cliff. Come on, I made all the 2 meals. Everyone else, there's only 1 meal for the last sukkah to the cliff. I made all the 2 meals, so the guy could only walk 1 meal, Shabbos, and then the other, he stood there and he watched a meal's distance. Here's the food, here's the water. It's on them. Never happened that you needed it. You cannot compare. Somebody that has it, he knows that it's available if he needs it. So does not have bread available in his basket. They split this piece of wool, and half of the wool they put around the neck and around the horns, and half of the wool they put around the boulder. When the kata kula b'selap, why don't you just tie the entire thing around the boulder? So they want it very simply. Even the mitzvah b'seir, the mitzvah is to do to toss the goat off. Dilma kodim malbin. What happens if the part that's around the boulder becomes white? You think, forgiven already. Who needs to throw a goat off the things like the goat? He feels calm. The feels calm, won't do it. So we want him to proceed. So you put a rope around the horn. So put the whole thing around the horn. We don't care if nobody else sees it. He's the only one who has to see. Zimnin the gomish le'ereisha. Sometimes when you throw it, remember you throw it backwards, it might put his head in backwards or something, or puts his head in. But you won't notice. You can't see the string. So we need like a safety measure to have one on the boulder, one on. In the old days, they tie it in the base of English on the very entrance, outside. He'll be, and if it turned white, everybody was rejoicing. Didn't turn white, it remained red. Something they were depressed, and on Yom Kippur it has to be the simcha.
So that's he's doing these rikas. He's throwing the so in the mikdash.
It could happen before. It says it could happen even before. We just learned a minute ago. It can happen before you throw it off, and that's why we're scared. If you tie it around the boulder, you might not then go ahead. It happens, and as you're walking from that time, the kapara. Which it's the vidui that the Kohen Gadol does there in the base of Mikdash, the vidui, which is the kapara. And the question is exactly what role does this Zazel have? Death that finishes it off, or is it the throwing off the cliff?
That's what you're talking about.
We had also when you had the 2 animals, we had to know which was which. They put as a hoidus around the animals. The machlek is in the portion whether this is a hoidus is the same size as that, but this is an addition. It helps to recognize the 2 different goats. Okay, so exactly.
So this is when you say Bereshina.
Old days. In the old days, it doesn't say exactly when. In the olden days, could be beginning. Remember, in the beginning, major things were going well. Anyway, so I say they were depressed, and then it says the Ramos said we only do bichas kainim on Yom Tov because we're never happy. Because Shabbos we're not happy. Because we're always worried about our parnasa, and on Yom Tov we're happy. We also do Yom Kippur. Must be that Yom Kippur is also a time to be happy with the kapara. So we have to be happy. We don't want the people to be depressed, so we don't want them to see. So they say, no, we'll do it on the inside. Only the Kohen you can see, even a few Kohen. But everybody stood on the tippy toes and tried to look when they opened the no, we'll go far away from everybody. Nobody will know the difference. We'll go all the way there, over there. And by the time they find out, the tip will be over. So you keep it over. I'm going to know about Papa Shabbat Kappa, but he's showing you similarly. But he's showing the good old days. How you Kaishin Lashon Shazayis Al Pes Ulam if Chachil starts inside. Kimish Gis the Midbar, how you Malbin. See, as soon as it reached the Midbar, as soon as you left the environs of Yerushalayim, it could turn white already. The Yodush and Nasa Mitzvah, they know that you did the right thing. It says, if your sins are red, crimson, Kashal Yalbinu, I'll forgive you, I'll turn them into white. This is okay. Right, the Gemara.
This place would actually through the perspective we have to find a place that's a cliff and that happens to be 12 meters into the Shalim, or what particular place?
Maybe look at geography of Shalim and see maybe that's the closest one. At that time, the animal reached halfway down the mountain. It already fell apart. The limbs that fell apart. What's the din? Can you have it? The general rule is once nas and mitzvah, remember it's mutter. But Taisa told us before already that there are exceptions. This is one of the exceptions. And the question is, can you use the limbs to feed your animals or not? I'm not sure why you need a pasuk. Why he needs a pasuk? You just say because you nas and mitzvah. It's to counter, I guess, what Shmuel said. One said that the Chesiva says a pasuk that he should. This soy is carrying all the sins of the Eden to a land of Gezeda, and you should send the thing Bamidbar. Why stress Bamidbar? Bamidbar means Hefker. It's like the wilderness. Man also the Gezeda. Gezeda sounds like also a decree that that this is all part of the Gezeda. You can't use it at all. Man it says 3 times the word midbar. It says the word midbar there, and it says also the word hamid bara. You should take it azazel hamid bara, and it says another pasuk. You should shield be aditi hamid bara 3 times hamid bara. It's to tell you what that. So what does it say? Well, no, what he does with midbar? Why is it 3 times midbar? Can't be just for wilderness to teach you. The rabbis never given shila beisalamin. So I already asked. That's 4, not 3. So he said that they were given a very similar, so they're counted as 1. Shile was a permanent, was part, none of that, but it was part wall and part curtains, part stone and part curtain. So it's a different makeup, and the Beis Hamikdash is all stone. The other opinion, the one who said that Hefker was work Zeta, he needs it for the Gatanya. We learned Zeta, we don't want a cliff that that's a slope. We want a sheer cliff. And then it's like cut. Oh, it must be, yeah.
We can have a path or something.
So we learned, we want something that cuts up. The word Zeta is cutting up. It cuts up the goat as it falls down. So Zeta means a decree. Shema Taima might tell you say what kind of nonsense is this? An animal falls down and that's like a potter. You should know that I did it. Ani Hashem Gizartiv. I'm the one made Xela. You have no right to question my motives. This is one that I want to bring. It's actually not that there wasn't just a video that did the kapara. It's throwing off the animal off the cliff, and particularly the whole method that has to bounce off the cliff walls. All part of the kapara.
Rabbi. Rabbi?
Yeah.
So can I start? Is this cliff actually ever identified as a place where it is?
Okay,
or by name?
Some homework. He'll come back on the chat.
We'll find an archaeological website.
Sorry?
We'll find out. The question also was the 12 meals, that's kind of it's a custom, or that just a fact that that's the closest cliff that they had? That's part of the homework.
When you count Fukim, everyone's.
No, you'll see in a second. Just relax. And across
the road is this building that built because they want to extend on the workers from looking at this police station. That's what they got there. And I was looking, you can see the towers of the Shalim, some towers. You see, looking at this place that they took you to go to.
Exactly. Take one further. Omar rather mistabed. It makes sense. Command Matari has permitted the limbs. Why? Because like Umra Torah, there's no way the world of Torah would say Shalach, send it out. The Kalko, people down on the bottom don't know that these are parts of the Seder Hazazel, and they'll think that that it's a hefker, and they'll feed it to the animal. We don't like to put stumbling blocks before people. That's what we learned. What's the word Azazel? What kind of word is Azazel? The word Azazel from the word Az, strong, the kush and tough. That I would have thought you should all do this in somewhere in a built-up area. Tamalim, but out in the wilderness. I know it has to be a cliff. Tamalim, Gzeda. That means cut, like we just said before. Tanya, in other words, Azazel, Kosher Shebahadim, the toughest of the mountains. It says, "Ves Elia Oretz Lakachi took the leaders of the land." No, was the toughest mountains. Azazel Shemechaper Amaisa Uza va'Azoel. that this will forgive on the Avedas that Uzzah and Azor did. And Rashi tells us who was Uzzah and Azor. They were Malachim. They were bad Malachim. They came down in this world in the form of humans, and they then committed adultery. So therefore, it forgives on the Aved of adultery, which is why we actually, maybe why we read by Mincha, we read all about Aroyas, because of this thing right here of Uzzah and Azor. And the Mephosh Taka asked, and they remember the question. We live for it forgives on every single Aveda. I say, Chamuz Vakalas, why choose only Aroyas? Why does it about Azoza because of Aroyas? And why do we only learn about Aroyas? It forgives every Aveda. So Teisanen says that Aroyas is the one that Yitzhak answer that people can have the least control over than any other Aveda. So maybe that's why we highlight this particular one. Tell them what we learned. It says a pasuk, "Es mishpatai tasu." Now this is what you asked me. You should follow my mishpatim, and then you should also do my chuk. What's a mishpat? Mishpat doesn't mean normally saying mishpat is things that we had in Maria that if you wouldn't have told us this, we would learn it from an amola. We would learn the behavior from a cat. We would learn things from certain ethic we would know on our own. That's not what mishpatim means. Here, mishpatim would be something we say ages. Things that we told you now we told you it makes sense. So, example, if it wasn't written, it makes sense. If you want to be religious, you should write it down. For example, it's not a question of ethic. This is a question in religion, but it's natural. If you believe in Eibishter, you shouldn't have avodah zarah. The gilu aroyas, that's unethical. Shvichas damim, unethical. Gezel birchas Hashem. That's not a question about ethical. That's again a question of religion. But if you have religion, then it makes sense. What would be the paradigm of chukah? Interesting. We don't bring paradum. Dvarim shahasatan meishro. I think the Satan asks you about. Elaine achilas chazit. Why don't we eat pork? Ulavisha shatnas. This is what Rashi always brings down the chumash. Chalitzas yivama. Rashi doesn't really bring that down. Chalitzas yivama. What's the logic that I have to step into my brother's shoes? The taras mitzayda. The procedure. How a Mitzayda, you send one bird away alive, that procedure, the tar of the Mitzayda, there's no logic to it. Why doesn't it mention Hipparadum?
That's in the parsha, where it says that this is the epitome of the chayk. Doesn't the Ramban say this is to what's his name? To
that's the Yibam before Mitzayda. It was vertical. Yes, Lanu Soid Godel was saying.
He also said that this was something the going on. So brother looks after the.
That's what he says. The Rambam, I think, says in Marina Bukhim. He says Yesh Poi Soid Godel. We can't reveal it.
Well, in relation to
in the idea of Gilgul, which is the idea of Gilgul Neshama, because there's no Gilgul Neshama brought down in Nigla at all. So that's the whole idea of Gilgul Neshama. That's why the Neshama comes down through the brother to the son. That's what Nigla Shemach. Okay, but I don't know. It's puzzling why we don't have a paradum here, and the big machlekes in the Shemach talks a lot about it. Is when we say a chok has no logic, there's no logic we can understand, or there's no logic at all. Rashi clearly said there's no logic. Chassidus explains that the Eibishter puts it into logic. Not that the logic was a basis. All mitzvahs. Not the logic is the basis for mitzvahs. Mitzvahs, the Eibishter wants. The Eibishter wanted these mitzvahs to have a logic, and the Eibishter wanted these mitzvahs. Clearly, you can see there's above logic. And even if you can find the logic, like Shlomo said, yeah, but Moshe did l'chani megala. But the logic isn't the basis for the reason. Shabbat. Yeah.
And the Shura is that they're all based on Kabbalah soul. That's it. It's a Ratzon alien.
Exactly.
Doesn't matter what it is.
But the Ratzon goof is that you should understand it as well. You just say. Looking at the Rabban, it gives a reason why for kashrus. The Rabban gives a reason for kashrus. Before she give a reason for shatnez. That's right. The Eibishter created the world in a certain way and shouldn't mix the meaning one to another. Well, you climb. You have no right to ask. That the person who walks with the goat is Matamim Godim. But his escort is not his clothes not become tummy. As soon as he walks out of the base of Mikdash, he should become tummy already, because it says the one who walks with what do you call it? With the goat, Hamishaleach. Therefore, it says in the pasuk that the one who goes with the soyed to the azazel, he washes his clothes. Shaleich is like you left her, you left your shleich. Maybe after when he reaches the cliff itself, and as soon as he leaves, as soon as he walks out of the wall of the Yerushalayim, then his ray becomes tummy. His clothes become tummy. Rabbi Yisrael Azazel, it says Azazel, the Chibas, it says in Pasuk, you should take him to Azazel. And then the next word says Yechabes, Ad Shegila Tzuk. You have to reach the mountain. To Azazel. Remember, we said Azazel is a tough mountain. When you bring you bring it to the mountain, there's a cliff. That's when it's called with Tamah. She says further, only after you throw him out, throw him down. He says, I'm Shalech, you want to send him off to the Azazel. That's when you wash your clothes. And could be they're arguing actually which juncture is the final tumah, is the final kapara. Just as soon as he starts taking the walk, but is it tonight you have to throw him off the cliff, or is it the throwing off the cliff, or is it the dying or whatever, or is it standing by the cliff?
If you already started the walk, there's a kapara. If something happens, the Moshe says since it's been done, don't bother.
It's not market. We learned before already. This is a market. If he never took the goat, it's not market. Even the only thing that has to do with the girdle. Only thing that's marked with the thing that he wore white clothes. Says the mission, right? The next mission, Ebola ate some par. Okay, now we finished with the Azazel. He goes back to the par, and he goes back to the goat that were burned. Koron. Now, what do you do with it? Remember, the bull and the goat that he took the blood and he sprinkled it. Now we have to. What do you do with the bull and the goat itself? The bull and the goat itself are going to be burned outside of the base of Mikdash, outside of Yerushalayim, out of the 3 camps. But before you do that, you have to take out a certain part of the animals and put them on the mizbeach. So he puts a koron. You rip it open. He removes the fats. Nostam b'meges. He puts them inside a vessel. And then somebody goes and puts it on the mizbeach. They then went ahead and they carried 2 big sticks, going to Rashi, and they had 4 people carrying it, and they would take both animals and place them on these sticks, one on top of the other, and they used to sort of braid them together. Others say, the Orach says it means it just had sticks, and they put them on the sticks. Well, they say a hole. They took it to the base of Sreifa hole. They took out the innards, and the rest they kept intact. According to the Rambam, they cut some big pieces, but not completely, and they took the base of Sreifa. And when he metamim begodim in this case, carrying now the pot in the soil. As soon as you left the base of Mikdash. No, when you get to the part when you're going to burn them outside of Yerushalayim, and most of it catches on fire. Says the Gemara, big tea, like that. What the Kohen Gadol goes ahead and he's mocked to them himself. In order to be mocked him as Be'ach, does not necessarily be him. That's right. Yep.
Even though he does all the other just cut it off.
Yeah. They sort of braided together. They didn't go ahead and cut it up like the oil you cut up. But by an oil, they used to strip the hide off, and then they would cut it up. Here they would cut up. When they got to the others, to the mountain, when they cut it up into pieces, the skin was still on. No, how you know that? Tanya, we learned. It says Nemakan here. It says oir ubasar. It says oir the part and the basar, and it says upisha and all of his junk. But it says later on oir ubasar upir. It says the same thing as well. So by Yom Kippur it has it, and also by the par Kohen Mashiach it says the same thing. That you have the oil and the it says oir ubasar uperish. There's the oil with it as well. What does it mean? So just like over there, they did not remove the hide. Over here also, when Yom Kippur, they would cut up the pieces, but they didn't remove the entire hide. So who told you about Parkay Moshe? That's how it's done. That the hide is still on. Maybe it's like the oil that you remove the hide. Tanya, we learn. It says the pasuk. It says the kirbai upirshai, they would take in the innards and also its junk, and take it out. And then you take out the entire part outside of the base of Mikdash. Comes to teach you that the animal is still intact. Yachol Yisrafen so when you burn it, also still be intact. Here it says by the park of Reishu Krop. And then Malal says later on, Reishu Kroyim, it says later on by the oil. that the Roisha crime. By the oil, we know we break up in parts. Malahalon into it by cutting in pieces. After this by cutting pieces. I malahalon. So if you're comparing it to the oil, by the oil, like the hefshet, you remove the entire hide. Afkana the hefshet, remove the entire hide. That the only thing you take out is the kibbutz and pirshay. Just like the pirshay is inside him. Just like the same thing when it's talking about the bustle, you have to break it up. It's inside the hide. Okay, tomorrow, Mitzvah 7:20.
Let's see what we're going to do.